As the last echoes of the Indus Valley faded into history, a new dawn broke over the fertile plains of the Ganges and Yamuna. Around 1500 BCE, waves of Indo-Aryan tribes journeyed across the rugged mountain passes, carrying with them something priceless. Not gold, not weapons, but words. The sacred hymns of the Vedas, verses that spoke to gods, nature, and the human soul. Unlike the bustling brick cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, these were pastoral nomads who roamed with cattle, axes in hand, clearing dense forests to carve out fields. Their settlements were humble, clusters of thatched huts, smoke spiraling into the crimson dawn. But in these simple homes, a new world was being born, not of bricks and mortar, but of rituals, faith, and an unyielding code of duty. And among these rising tribes stood three giants, Kuru, Panchala, and Videha. First among equals was Kuru, the land of great kings and epic wars. With capitals at Hastinapur and Indraprastha, the Kurus gave structure to Vedic society, codifying rituals and dharma. Here, the seeds of political order were sown. To the east of Kuru lay Panchala, a land famed for its wisdom and warriors. Ahijhatra and Kampilya became centers of learning, where sages composed hymns and seekers explored the deepest truths of existence. Further east, beyond the rivers, lay Videha, with its capital at Mithila. Here ruled King Janaka, remembered as a philosopher king. From this land came sages like Yajnavalkya, who shaped the Upanishadic thought that defines India's spiritual heritage. Kuru gave us law, Panchala gave us knowledge, and Videha gave us wisdom. These Janapadas laid the foundation of India's civilization, where politics, philosophy, and dharma walked hand in hand. The Vedas, our earliest sacred texts, were whispered long before they were written. In the flowing rhythms of Vedic Sanskrit, they held prayers to the gods, secrets of the cosmos, and the rules that shaped early life. They were more than hymns. They were guides to law, order, and duty, carried in memory from guru to disciple across generations. Imagine an endless horizon, lush green plains, rivers glistening beneath the golden sun, and scattered tribal hamlets rising like islands in a sea of wilderness. Smoke curls from hearth fires while cattle graze near quiet streams. This was the world of the early Vedic tribes, a land alive with promise, a cradle of culture in the making. The Ganga was not just a river, it was the lifeblood of a civilization. Along its sacred banks, tribes settled and thrived. Its waters nourished their crops, cleansed their bodies, and sanctified their rituals. Every sunrise upon the river was a blessing, every offering cast upon its waves a prayer to the eternal. In these first settlements, life was simple yet ordered. Families built circular huts of wood and thatch, grouped around open courtyards. Smoke from cooking fires mingled with the scent of earth. At dawn, men tended cattle in fields, while women prepared meals and cared for children. The tribe was more than a community. They were families bound by loyalty, honor, and survival. Markets were the lifeline of exchange. Beneath open skies, traders displayed baskets of grain, bundles of herbs, gleaming ornaments of copper and gold. Barter was the language of trade, wheat for salt, cattle for cloth. Voices mingled with the bleating of goats, and the clang of metal echoed against the songs of wandering bards. Beneath the ancient banyan, the village council gathered. Gray-haired elders sat in a circle, their words carrying the weight of law and tradition. Here, justice was spoken aloud. Disputes were settled and alliances forged, not in courts of stone, but under the open sky. For in the Vedic world, wisdom was not written. It was lived and remembered. Women were the quiet strength of Vedic life. At sunrise, they walked to the river with clay pots balanced gracefully on their heads, laughter rippling like the water they fetched. At home, they tended the hearth, wove garments, and in sacred rituals, their voices rose in hymns alongside the men, keepers of harmony in the tribe. For the children, life was a festival of simple joys. They chased each other across open fields, rolled clay wheels through the dust, and carved toys from twigs and seeds. Their laughter echoed against the wind, a promise that life would endure beyond every hardship. Under the shade of thatched awnings, Craftsmen bent over their work with patient skill. Hands molded wet clay into pots, carved wood into tools, and shaped shining ornaments of copper. Each creation carried not just utility, but artistry, a mark of pride in a world built by human hands. When the day's work was done, the tribe came together in celebration. Fires blazed under the open sky, and the air filled with the aroma of roasting grains and milk. Men beat drums, women sang, and dancers spun in circles of joy. In those nights of music and laughter, the bonds of kinship grew strong. At the heart of Vedic faith burned the sacred fire, Agni, the divine messenger. Around the altar, priests chanted hymns as clarified butter, grains, and fragrant herbs were offered into the flames. The yajna was not mere ritual. It was a dialogue with the cosmos, a prayer for order in a world of change. Among the many tribes, the Kurus rose to prominence. Their council halls echoed with voices of statesmen and priests, debating law, justice, and dharma. This was the dawn of structured rule, where power moved from wandering clans to organized kingdoms, laying the foundation of political order in the Vedic age. Marriage was not merely a union, it was a sacred alliance. Around the glowing fire, the bride and groom circled 7 times, chanting vows from the Vedas. Each step was a promise of loyalty, strength, and shared destiny. Families rejoiced, for in these rituals, society renewed itself with every generation. When a king sought to proclaim his supremacy, the Ashvamedha was performed. A royal horse adorned with gold roamed free across kingdoms. Where it wandered unchallenged, sovereignty was accepted. When it was stopped, battle followed. This ritual was both sacrifice and strategy, a display of power sanctified by the gods. In the stillness before war, warriors gathered their arms, polished spears, taut bows, and gleaming shields. Horses were yoked to chariots, and war drums thundered like distant storms. In their eyes burned a single resolve: to defend honor, tribe, and sacred land, even at the cost of life itself. Across the sunlit plains, armies advanced in unbroken lines, warriors on foot, chariots rumbling like rolling thunder. Dust rose in clouds behind them, banners fluttered in the wind, and the chant of battle hymns carried across the earth, a song of courage that heralded the clash to come. Before the charge, the chieftain stood high upon his chariot, his voice ringing above the roar of men and horses. He spoke of duty, of dharma, of the eternal glory that awaited the brave. For in the Vedic world, valor was the measure of man, and honor was a legacy carved in blood. The battlefield erupted in chaos, spears clashed, arrows streaked through the sky, and the thunder of hooves shook the earth. War cries pierced the air as dust veiled the sun. Chariots wheeled like swift storms. Warriors fought hand to hand, and the land drank deep the price of ambition. The war chariot was the jewel of the battlefield, fast as the wind, light as a feather, yet deadly in its might. Driven by skilled hands, they raced across the plains, swift arcs of polished wood and whirling wheels, carrying warriors who struck with the force of lightning. When the tumult fell silent, the field lay strewn with the fallen. Broken chariots, shattered shields, and lifeless forms told the tale of valor and sacrifice. Smoke curled from smoldering fires, and the wind carried the mournful notes of flutes. In that silence, victory and loss shared the same breath. Not every conflict ended in carnage. In shaded groves and torch-lit halls, rival clans met to forge peace. They shared meals, exchanged gifts, and sealed pacts with solemn oaths. For even in a warrior's world, wisdom knew that strength lay not only in swords, but in unity. Alliances were sanctified by fire. Around the sacred flame, chiefs clasped hands, chanting hymns that bound their tribes in loyalty and trust. These vows promised peace for generations. Though history would tell a different story, one written in both ink and blood. When triumph came, it came with music and revelry. Fires roared high as warriors danced in circles, their arms raised in exultation. Drums thundered, flutes sang, and feasts stretched long into the night. For a brief moment, the scars of battle faded in the glow of victory. Far from the tumult of politics, learning flourished in the gurukuls. Under the shade of trees, Disciples sat at the feet of their guru, reciting hymns, studying philosophy, and mastering the art of war. Here, knowledge was not sold. It was earned through service, discipline, and devotion. Amidst the noise of life, some sought silence. On riverbanks bathed in moonlight, sages closed their eyes and stilled their breath, seeking truths beyond the senses. In their solitude was strength, and in their contemplation, the seeds of philosophies that would one day shape civilizations. Art was worship, and worship was art. In the glow of firelight, dancers moved with grace, their anklets chiming like silver bells. Singers wove melodies from ancient hymns, and flutes whispered to the night wind. Music and dance were offerings to the divine, echoes of a soul yearning for harmony. From nimble fingers flowed beauty, threads spun into cloth on wooden looms, clay molded into graceful pots, ornaments shaped to adorn kings and queens. Each craft was a testament to skill, patience, and imagination, a quiet poetry etched in earth and fiber. The sky was their scripture. By the light of oil lamps, scholars traced constellations and marked the path of the moon. They read the heavens like a book, predicting rains, eclipses, and sacred days with astonishing precision. For in the Vedic mind, time itself was a cosmic rhythm. At the heart of the Vedic world was the Grand Yajna, a ritual vast in scale and meaning. Fires blazed under towering altars as priests chanted verses that rose like flames to the heavens. Offerings of grain, ghee, and gold fed the sacred fire, binding man, nature, and the divine in an eternal covenant. Before moving to the conclusion, help my channel to grow by pressing the subscribe and bell icon. The Vedic age was a time of profound transformation, a journey from wandering pastoral tribes to structured societies, from scattered settlements to flourishing villages, and from hymns sung under open skies to intricate rituals performed around blazing sacred fires. The early Janapadas, Kuru, Panchala, Videha, and their neighbors were more than lands. They were laboratories of civilization, where politics, law, philosophy, and spirituality intertwined to shape the destiny of a people. Yet even in this age of growth and wisdom, change was inevitable. The semi-nomadic tribes, once bound together by shared rituals and oral traditions, faced pressures that tested the very fabric of their society. Population growth and the scarcity of fertile land fueled rivalry between neighboring clans. The decentralized tribal assemblies, once sufficient for small pastoral communities, struggled to maintain order as settlements grew and ambitions widened. Wealth began to concentrate in the hands of the powerful. Regional chieftains asserted autonomy, and disputes over resources and succession created fissures in the once unified social order. The Vedic rulers, though wise and spiritually enlightened, could not contain the rising currents of political ambition. Kings sought to expand their influence, sometimes through diplomacy, often through conquest. Small republics and clans gradually transformed into organized kingdoms, each with its own court, council, and military, ushering in an era where power, strategy, and diplomacy became as important as ritual and philosophy. From these seeds of both prosperity and internal tension, a new era emerged, the age of the Mahajanapadas, 16 powerful kingdoms stretching across the Gangetic plains. These states would usher in monumental changes, armies clashing across rivers and forests, trade networks linking distant lands, and centers of learning where sages, philosophers, and mathematicians would lay the foundations of classical Indian civilization. The Vedic age may have receded, but its spirit endured. Its hymns, rituals, and philosophical insights continued to shape law, ethics, and spiritual thought, even as kingdoms rose and fell. It was a time of both continuity and change, where the lessons of the past met the ambitions of the future, a crucible in which the story of India's great empires was forged. Join us again as we step into this turning point in history where 16 mighty states rose, alliances were forged, rivalries ignited, and the epic saga of India's first great empires began, a story of ambition, wisdom, and the inexorable march of civilization. Thanks for watching.